Let's get started, guys. Let's talk about deploying a project on the Permaweb from A to Z. Shout out to Station 3, to Nate and the team for letting us use this cool space. We had a blast last time, so it's really great to be here to host our own event. Hopefully we can do more. My name is Phil Mataras. I am the founder and CEO of Permanent Data Solutions, and we are building decentralized protocols, apps, and infrastructure for the Arweave Permaweb. And our mission at PDS has been the same since I started, and that's to get permanent storage into the hands of everyone. And since 2020, we've launched a few innovative products that utilize Arweave's permanent storage. You might know us from our app Arweave, which if you don't, was the first pay once, store forever app. It's kind of like Dropbox, where you can upload, share, and organize your files that are stored on Arweave, whether public or private. And we started with Arweave, and then we saw some other opportunities on the infrastructure side. So that's where we started to build the RIO network, which is a network of decentralized gateways and permanent domain names that also support the Permaweb. So we're going to get into both. We have a bit of an agenda today. First, I wanted to do a bit of an intro on the Permaweb in case some of you aren't familiar. We're going to talk about some of the major components in infrastructure and the name system, the domain name system that we've created. We're going to do, hopefully, a fun and interactive demo with you guys that we've prepared, and then we'll wrap things up and go on to a little panel with some of our friends. Now, you might be asking, what is the Permaweb exactly? Is anyone familiar with this? Does anyone know what the Permaweb is? A few hands. Okay. And maybe even to backtrack, how many of you guys out here are like developers? Would you say like, yeah, you're a developer engineer? Okay. So maybe, I don't know, the third. Good. This isn't that technical of a demo, and hopefully, if you're not a hardcore dev, you can still follow along. But what is the Permaweb? Well, we like to say it's the first unruggable cloud that enables data permanence, sovereignty, and accessibility that's really aimed at securing the world's knowledge forever and upholding our rights of free speech in cyberspace. So it's a word salad, right? But what is it really? Well, it's a new internet, right? It's a little different than the existing internet, right? Because every piece of information that's stored on it is securely timestamped and tamper-proof, right? So you can verify who uploaded it and when, right? Which provides a real clear record of data provenance, right? It's really important in this day and age with some of the content that's getting created. Get into that in a little bit. Permaweb is public by default, right? And it's replicated around the world, right? So it's not one specific region or geography or country. It's everywhere, right? It's powered by an open source, ownerless protocol. Doesn't require any permission to run, right? Anyone can spin up an Arweave node and take part in that network and start replicating data. One of the real key things about the Permaweb is data uploaded is fully paid for in a tokenized endowment, right? So this offers an indefinite period of storing data. So it's like buying versus leasing, right? When you upload, you're buying that block space for 200 plus years of storage. So it costs more because it's not a lease, but there's no upkeep. You don't have to keep paying for that data storage, right? And there's no delete button. Again, it's built for immutability, long-term storage. It can't be taken down by you or anyone else. So it's really important for censorship resistance and preventing from any kind of deplatforming. But it's also kind of the same, like the traditional internet. It works across any browser, right? Over HTTP and TCP/IP. There's no fancy new protocol or anything like that. You can build things on it with your standard web frameworks, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, React, Flutter, any kind of web native language works on the Permaweb. Thanks to RIO gateways, it performs like you would expect a normal website or app to perform. It's not really slow to pull your data out like maybe some other storage platforms out there. And it's all wrapped around this real rich and composable ecosystem of dApps, services, tools, SDKs. There's a lot of things out there that you can use to start building. Now, from my opinion, I think this kind of permanent web can fix a lot of issues that I've seen in my lifetime on the internet when it comes to storing and accessing data. So, for example, as I started to go back to any of my old blogs or websites that I created in high school, college, whatever, I was just seeing more and more 404 errors, right? Site not found. I had an old blog on Zanga, which, yeah, it'd be pretty cool if I can go and read some of that stuff that I wrote in my real angsty, college days, but they're gone. I never even had a chance to back up that stuff. For example, in 2019, I don't know if anyone here remembers MySpace or has used MySpace, but there was some server errors, right? And they lost all music uploaded to the platform between 2003 and 2015. Around 50 million songs just gone, right? So if those artists backed them up or stored them somewhere else, okay, good for them. But if they really trusted MySpace, that stuff that they created is gone. I personally started becoming inundated with massive amounts of subscription fees and bills, right? Everything now is a subscription. And sure, these little $9, $10, $12 subscriptions, the price is only going up, and you're only accumulating more, and it's just hard to keep track of. And then I started realizing, well, half of these things I'm not even using, and you're just getting billed repeatedly for it. And on top of that, these services are getting hacked. All your information is getting lost or spread around, to people that you might not want to have it. And I know the election is coming up, but even elections now and political events are getting tampered with by people abusing some of the web's algorithms. Spreading disinformation, social engineering, all that stuff now is starting to come to light on the current web. And now with kind of the advent of AI and, you can maybe argue machine learning and AI has kind of been around for a bit, but it's getting really, really easy now to just create tons of content, deep fakes, et cetera. So having this clear record of data provenance can maybe help us understand what's what, who uploaded what, and if it's legit or not. Recently, there was a good report by Grayscale, which actually highlighted that even now major investors, not like Web3, small VCs, investors like that, like major institutions are starting to recognize how the integration of AI and decentralized storage platforms like Arweave can address some of the issues with AI development, such as data privacy, centralization, bias in AI models. And teams integrating these kinds of permanent storage solutions can safeguard their data assets, right? Whether it's LLMs or synthetic data, and you can actually gain a competitive edge amongst the other teams that are rapidly trying to innovate in this space that aren't doing this. So leveraging decentralized technology like Arweave and other platforms, can really help this safe development in AI and can allow you to build tools on platforms that are really designed to stand the test of time. So Arweave has been around, I think it launched in early 2018. It's going to be 7 years now. And so far, it's being used for tons of different things. I'm just looking at some of the major use cases and permanent data types. Of course, you can deploy websites or apps, pages. We're going to talk about how you can do that today. There's lots of games that have been deployed, whether simple JavaScript games or more complicated things that might access an LLM and leverage AI. Arweave has always been a place to just store files, right? This is one of the first things that attracted me to it. Like, hey, I can just keep my personal music, photos, videos. I can store this here and pay once and keep it forever. Like, that is super cool. And really, that concept is what made me quit my job and jump into this. NFTs and digital assets was, I think, one of the first major use cases that really started to take off in Arweave when the NFT craze really started, I guess in, 2019, 2020. And that's because creators were realizing, hey, I'm making this token and it's got my 1,000, profile pictures, and sure, the token is on Ethereum and that's not going anywhere, but I'm storing my data in S3, or I'm using IPFS and I'm just trusting this team or this person to keep that data there forever. Meanwhile, I'm selling my artwork and hey, that picture or that piece of music could actually go away. And really, what's the value in just having a token that's not having an NFT that's not actually assigned to artwork? So Arweave really provided a good platform for that, where creators didn't have to worry about continually paying for those subscription fees even after they've sold their token. There's a few different social platforms that have now been deployed on Arweave. I think one of the biggest ones now is called Odyssey. And this is really to leverage the fact that you own your identity in the Permaweb. You can't be deplatformed. And that's a risk now with a lot of different social networks. You might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and there you go. They take your identity, and now you cannot access that network anymore. Your friends, your photos, any of the content that you might have uploaded to it. Just mentioned artificial intelligence, but yeah, we've been seeing synthetic data, real data, as well as the LLMs themselves getting uploaded to Arweave and accessed, right? Whether they're accessed from some centralized system or other decentralized platforms, really doesn't matter. Arweave is a great place for keeping that data. And then really one of the bigger data sets that we see is actually other blockchain data getting archived to the Permaweb. For example, some blockchains might only keep 2 or 3 weeks of data on their chain. So they're archiving that to Arweave, or Oracle systems taking pricing information and detailed bits around the world and safeguarding those assets on Arweave as well. And then maybe using them in other smart contracts on, again, different platforms. So it's a general place for storage. So you can really do a lot of things. These are just some of the major ones that we've seen and really tried to help out. If we look at some of the scale that the Permaweb has grown to, and kind of grab some of these stats today from the main gateway that we've been operating, arweave.net, over 200 terabytes uploaded already, right? So this is 200 terabytes of data that's going to be stored for 200 plus years. Over 10 billion individual pieces of data have been uploaded. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of pages, files, JSON, you name it. Transactions per second, I mean, we've been over 300 all year. So it scales, right? I think we've bursted up to, 14 or 1,500 transactions per second. And that's not us testing the system just to see how high it goes. That's real usage has increased to that kind of TPS. And there's really, not to get into the weeds, but there's really no limit to what that TPS could be, which is a very interesting property. If we look at unique users, right? So figure this isn't people who are just uploading data, but reading it, consuming it. It's around 500,000 unique people going to arweave.net every month, which I think is pretty cool. And just looking at how much they're requesting, almost 7 billion requests a month. So I see this, and I see a system that's really getting used. This is not some test platform. This is a production environment. And again, this is just from arweave.net. This is just one of the gateways out of the hundreds that exist on the network where you can upload and access your data from. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So what are the major parts of this new permanent internet? Well, you have the storage layer, that's Arweave, right? You have the compute layer, which could be other blockchains or a new system called AO that I'll talk about in a second. There's the web layer, which is how you're accessing and uploading your data. There's a name system that we created that kind of ties it all together. And then we have protocolized incentives that ensure the data is stored, replicated, and accessible, right? That was one of the big pieces that maybe some other platforms don't have. There's no incentive for somebody to actually store that piece of information and serve it back out. So that was a really important piece of the whole equation. Just to really highlight what Arweave is, right? Arweave is the base storage layer, and it's responsible for the actual permanent data storage, right? So the Arweave protocol has this incentive that rewards miners for storing data, right? So consider it like a proof of work-like system where a miner has to prove that they can still access any historical piece of information. So it really forces them to store as much as possible so they can prove that they have access to it and then mine the next block and get the most reward. So it's a very simple mechanism, and it features this tokenized endowment that facilitates this subscription-free pay-as-you-go upload experience, right? So the endowment at this point, I think, has over maybe 100,000 or so AR. That's Forward Research, the team who developed the Arweave protocol. They built it to secure that data for 200 plus years. plus, right? So I think depending on the cost of storage, it's if there's some really big storage advancements in the future, that could be even beyond. And again, this endowment figure, when you upload a file, you pay an amount in AR, and a small amount of that goes to the miner who accepts the transactions and mines the block. But a bigger amount goes into this endowment, and that's what pays for the storage of your data over that very, very long period of time. But now it's important to note that Arweave itself doesn't perform all the things that a typical app needs, right? It's just storage. It's just a hard drive. This is where some of those other layers come in. So to just highlight one of the compute layers, right? I said before, like you could use Ethereum, Solana, or centralized compute if you wanted to, and leverage permanent storage with Arweave. But there's a new general purpose compute layer called AO, which is this new supercomputer that's all built on top of Arweave. A few important things to note about it: it's high speed, it's very fast, instant finality, it's high throughput, right? It can scale not just for a single smart contract, but for many of them. And these smart contracts don't impact each other, which I think is a really interesting property. It's WASM-based, which means each process or smart contract has a very vast memory footprint, and it even supports, it's even chain agnostic, right? So it can support different wallets, right? Not just Arweave wallets, but Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, and more. So it's got a very unique property that, again, allows other ecosystems to leverage not just Arweave, but this compute layer for doing all kinds of things. So now we have the web layer, right? And this is really what we're focused on the most. So the web layer is powered by the RIO network, right? And the RIO network is a network of gateways that lets you read and write data to Arweave, right? So RIO, Arweave, in and out, right? So you can upload your data through these gateways, and they will distribute that data to the Arweave network securely. You can retrieve your data from a gateway. That's because it has this really fast cache, right? The Arweave network technically only sees data as chunks, right? 256 kilobyte chunks. But hey, not every file is 256 kilobytes, and your PDF or Word doc or video, has to be assembled from these chunks into what we call a contiguous file. So the gateway is really responsible for doing that and caching it so it's really fast to access. The gateway will render your apps or pages or websites so you can easily view and access them, right? And they come with the capability to index any transaction. So now if you want to find your data, you can easily query any gateway to get your transaction ID or any of the metadata associated with it. And then finally, we kind of tied it all together with this powerful decentralized domain name system that maps friendly names to any data or identity that exists on Arweave, ensuring that it's really easy to share and remember. And this is because, we kind of saw this issue of like, hey, you uploaded something, you're going to a URL that's like arweave.net with like a long hash. That's like really ugly. It's impossible to remember what your site is if you have to remember this long hash. So a simple friendly name that's accessible on any gateways was really the last piece in the puzzle to make this all look and feel like the current internet. So really simply put, like the gateway is the front door to the rest of the Permaweb. Now I mentioned before there are some incentives. We're not going to really get into too much about the token, but there is a utility token currently labeled as IO. Maybe that changes. But this token really powers and incentivizes the RIO network. I mentioned there's the Arweave token, AR. That's used to pay for storage. The RIO token, IO, is used for services on the RIO network. And we made this token because we needed our own permissionless and censorship-resistant medium of common value. So we developed this, not tied to any outside resources. Now, creating this new dedicated token, does a few things. Right? I mentioned here. Let's just skip to the next slide. It's used for a few things. So one, payments for network services like purchasing a name in the Arweave name system. There's a staking component, right? Any gateway that joins the RIO network has to provide a stake for trust minimization and other network benefits like data sharing. There's a delegated staking component, so normal retail users can earn a reward on their IO tokens by delegating it to a gateway that might be performing really well. And yeah, other future protocolized incentives for anyone else participating in the network. Now, it's important to note that the IO token is non-inflationary, right? So it's maybe different from some other staking systems, but this distinguishes the RIO network staking mechanism from maybe different yield generation tools. Again, there's lots of information online about delegated staking and gateways. We're not going to get into that now on like how to host a gateway. But if anyone is really interested in that piece, let me know after. I'm happy to talk to anyone about the infrastructure and the node hosting side. So let's maybe talk about the Arweave name system, right? So any kind of web, I think, would be incomplete without a name system to really simplify the navigation, as well as simplify user identities as well. Now, imagine the usability of the web today if we only had IP addresses. Right? It would be really difficult to remember, oh, go to Google. Oh, no, what's Google? Go to 174 dot blah, 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 right? Or, hey, email me at phil at 20.68. Whatever, right? We really need friendly names for things. Humans are not computers. Maybe if we all were, hashes and IP addresses would be easy for us. But we need friendly, memorable names. So the Arweave name system is our censorship-resistant, friendly domain name for any piece of data that's on Arweave, as well as an identity. We kind of started with data because Arweave is a data platform, but really any wallet or identity can also have a friendly name, maybe similar to ENS. We built an app, and we're going to get into this today. It's kind of like your Web3 GoDaddy, right? You can log in, purchase a name, right? Whether that's a lease up to 5 years or a permabuy, so you can actually buy a name that's yours forever, right? No expiration. Costs more, but there's no expiration or other subscriptions. Any purchase of a name, again, you pay the IO token, and that goes into our own RIO network protocol, and which is used for paying out any of the gateways that resolve and serve your name's data. Names are actually resolved on any of the RIO gateways on the network. So, for example, the name Rdrive, you can access Rdrive on gateway.io or rdrive.arweave.net or rdrive. There's 200 plus gateways on the network. So you're not bound to any single top-level domain. Each name actually includes a configurable subdomain namespace called undernames. So you don't just buy your one name, but you have flexibility to add stuff underneath it, like logo underscore Rdrive or OG or whatever you want. Kind of like buying or setting up a subdomain for your domain. We've created an easy-to-use app, but there's an SDK where you can build your own or integrate it into any other service or platform. And the Arweave name system, as well as any of the other RIO smart contract features, are all built on AO, which means very low gas fees to update and near instant finality for any change you make. You don't have to wait for something to get mined or to get confirmed on the network, which again is really cool, provides a really good developer experience. So each name is mapped to an Arweave name token or an ANT. This is a tokenized asset that's used to manage the ownership and the functionality of the name. So when you buy a name, this ANT is produced, and the owner of the ANT can control where the name points to, or can set the undernames or remove them, or change any of the other metadata about the name. They could add controllers or other people to manage that name for them. They could actually take this token and trade it on secondary markets. So, maybe it allows for a little speculation there. And ANTs are based off of a very flexible standard, which developers can customize as much as they want. And that was important for us because we really wanted them to be flexible, and we figured there could be all kinds of cool use cases for these names, like, for example, a DAO that manages a name, or an AI agent that manages a name, or anything you could think about developing. Now, we like to say, okay, with RNS, you can truly break free from your TLD, right? Because your name is available on literally hundreds of different domains. So any app can easily discover what gateway meets or what gateway you might want to use. We'll show this in a bit, but we have the Gateway Explorer app as well. You can't really see it from this screenshot, but you can see all the different domains that are available, the gateways and their performance statistics, how long they've been up, their stake. And now this is really providing the backbone of what we call the Wayfinder protocol, which is really this resilient way to access your data beyond any single ISP or top-level domain. So really the goal for us is you shouldn't even need to know which gateway to use, right? You shouldn't have to go through a list and be like, I want to pick this one. Ideally, you just know your name. And we've been working on this Wayfinder protocol, which instead of HTTPS, it's AR://. So instead of needing the fully qualified domain name like ao.arweave.net or SAM, et cetera, it's just AR://AO, SAM, RNS, right? And this Wayfinder protocol knows which gateway to use based on some different criteria. This manifests itself right now in a few different Chrome extensions like RConnect. Maybe that's some of you guys might have already downloaded this wallet. So you can try AR:// now. We actually have another little extension called Wayfinder, which is not a wallet. It's something that purely enables this. And we needed this in place because our goal ultimately is no more 404, no broken links, no lost dependencies. So resiliency is really, really important for that. Right now, when you access something on the internet, you're accessing a specific location, right? When you go to Amazon.com, that's going to an IP address, which is a specific location. With something like Wayfinder, it's not bound to any particular location. So I think that's really important if we wanted to build this internet that doesn't forget, because it has to have references to data that's just as durable as the permanent storage itself. Again, what's the point of making a website that's accessing all this permanent data if all those references break because one of the domains that you were using goes away? Not good. All right, so yeah, congrats guys. If you were able to follow along, you just published something that in theory should outlast your lifetime. Who knows what'll happen with medical advances and stuff. Maybe we'll live 200 years, but yeah. So now again, to just highlight like how cool I think that is. There's no subscriptions you're gonna have to pay for that anymore. There's no risk of you getting deplatformed or your data getting deplatformed. You have that clear record of data provenance. There's nobody else who's gonna be able to sign those files like you did with the wallet that you created, right? The transaction, immutable, can't ever be changed. But with RNS, you can have a name that is mutable that you can change, right? And it's accessible across hundreds of gateways on the network. And it's all with an identity that you fully own and have custody with. Nobody else has access to that. And yeah, nobody else could like sell that information to someone else. Right? And again, there's lots of other things you could do. I just showed a Linktree style homepage, but it could be a blog or a WordPress site or an important doc you made, your college thesis, obviously NFT collections, whether it's art, music, videos, whatever, video games, app front ends like Arweave, I just showed that. Wikis, I mean, there's really anything that you can deploy on the web, you'd be able to deploy in the Permaweb, right? And again, to recap what the Permaweb is, it's a web designed to never forget anything, right? It's actually a stack of storage, compute, and web services, right? It's used by lots of different teams and lots of different industries already, and it's ready for you guys to operate it and build on it today. And again, I've covered a lot of stuff. Happy to speak with anyone after the session. And some other resources in case you guys needed it. The cookbook is a really great spot for Arweave development. Obviously, we have docs.rio for leveraging our tools. Our GitHub, really good spot for code snippets. And yeah, you want to chat with us, join our Discord, join our Telegram, follow me on Twitter. Happy to, again, get on a call with anyone and do a real deep dive into any of this stuff. We have a little questing platform on Zealy, so if you're interested in doing some quests and getting some points, which allows you to win our mainnet airdrop, I recommend that. And yeah, follow us to find more news and updates. So that wraps it up. Again, thank you, Nate and the Web3 Station 3 team for hosting us, and I hope you guys enjoyed.